children are running for office, and I'm not doing either one, but I am going to talk about elected officials. But for the past 100 years, or more than 100 years, government has steadily grown its scope of power. And this has occurred under both Republicans and Democrats. Both political parties have presided over a steady expansion of government power and government assuming more control over our lives. And the reason for this is because both political parties and politicians in both political parties accept the same basic premise. And that premise is that physical force, government coercion, is a proper solution to social problems. And by force or coercion, I mean threats of jail or fines or seizure of your property if you don't do the bidding of politicians. Both Republicans and Democrats believe it's proper to tell you how to act despite your own values, despite your own desires, despite your own judgment. And if you don't act the way that they think is proper, they'll throw you in jail, take your money, seize your property. And this is the premise that we need to reject if we're to return America to the type of country that we're fighting for. It was this expansion of government that gave birth to the Tea Parties 3 or 4 years ago. The Tea Party found inspiration in the Founding Fathers, obviously, by the name Tea Party. And they've argued that we should return to the founding principles of America. Well, what are those principles? We can find the answer in the Declaration of Independence. In the Declaration, Thomas Jefferson wrote, "Behold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Jefferson went on to write that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So to Jefferson and the Founding Fathers, the proper purpose of government is to protect our individual rights, to protect our freedom to live our life as we choose. Now we've heard these words, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, since we're children. I said it many times ourselves. But what do these words mean? How does that translate to our own daily lives? What does that mean to us? Nice philosophical words, but when the rubber meets the road, what does that mean? Well, the right to life means your life is yours to live as you choose, free from interference from others, so long as you respect their right to live their life as they choose. The right to liberty means the freedom to take the actions that you think are best for your life. Again, free from interference from others, so long as you respect their life. And the right to the pursuit of happiness means the freedom to take the actions that you think are proper to achieve the values that will bring you joy, satisfaction in your life. So these rights, like all rights, pertain to freedom of action. The freedom to act as you judge best. The freedom to take the actions that will bring you the things that you want in your life. The only way that our rights can be violated is through physical force. If somebody ties you up, waves a gun in your face, breaks into your house, and steals your property, they deprive you of your rights. They deprive you of your ability to act as you choose. They deprive you of your freedom to act according to your own judgment. And so it's physical force, and only physical force, that can violate our rights. This is true whether the wielder of force is a lone gunman or a government agent. And it's equally true that government agent comes from Washington or from Austin or from City Hall. So it's the initiation of force, and only the initiation of force that violates our rights. And that doesn't matter who is initiating the force. Now, the Tea Parties implicitly endorse and embrace the idea of individual rights. And I say implicitly because the Tea Parties advocate 3 core ideas: limited government, free markets, and fiscal responsibility. And underlying these ideas, these 3 core ideas, is the principle of individual rights. So I'd like to briefly examine how individual rights underlies these 3 core ideas. I'm not going to talk about fiscal responsibility because I think if we have actually had limited government and free markets, the fiscal responsibility would take care of itself. So when we talk of limited government, what do we mean? Limited by what? Limited to what? And it's easy to say government should be limited. How does that translate in actual practice? Well, some people say that government should be limited by the will of the people. That government should only do what the majority approves of, what the majority agrees the government should do. But this is nothing more than democracy. Contrary to what many people think, America was not founded as a democracy. America was founded as a constitutional republic, and there's a crucial distinction. I'm not going to get into that, but there is a distinction. In a democracy, government can do, or the majority can do, anything it pleases simply because it's the majority. If the majority approves of some government program or policy or plan, government can do it if the majority agrees to it. As an example, in the democratic Athens, the majority voted to put Socrates to death because he advocated ideas that the majority thought were dangerous. So this idea of the will of the people or majority rule does not limit government. Quite the contrary. It gives government unlimited powers. Anything that the majority deems appropriate, government can do in a democracy. So how do we limit government? What's the proper way to limit government? Well, the principle of individual rights gives us a guideline, a very clear guideline. Individual rights say we have the freedom to act according to our own judgment, to live our lives as we choose. And the only way that those rights can be violated is through physical force, the initiation of physical force, threats of jail, fines, seizure of property, etc. So, and if government undertakes or threatens force, that violates our rights. And that is the principle that limits government, the principle of individual rights. So if government proposes some plan or program or policy, all we need to do is consult the principle of individual rights. Does it initiate force against citizens or not? If it does, it violates our rights. It's improper for government to do it. So the principle of individual rights gives us very clear guidelines on how to limit government, what is proper for government to do, and what is improper for government to do. So it's the principle of individual rights that we need to argue for if we really want limited government. So what about free markets? Margaret Thatcher once said that the operative word in free markets is free. She was right. Freedom, remember, is the absence of coercion. So a free market is a marketplace without any coercion, without any government intervention. In a free market, you're free to produce and trade as you judge best, free from interference from others, including government. So if you want to build an automobile that gets 3 miles per gallon, and you want to offer it for sale, government should protect you to do so. Government should not be telling you what mileage your vehicle should get, or what ingredients you can put in paint, or what kind of light bulb you can use. Government should be protecting our freedom to produce as we choose and to trade with others who voluntarily want to purchase those items. So a free market is marked by an absence of government intervention. When I say an absence, I mean a complete absence. You might think I'm implying that we should get rid of all regulations and abolish all the regulatory agencies. And I'm not going to leave it to implication. I'm going to say it explicitly. We should abolish all regulatory agencies and repeal all regulations. And I mean all, 100%. The FAA, the SEC, OSHA, the EPA, all of them should be abolished and eliminated, and all the regulations repealed. Now you might think I'm kind of crazy. You might say, we need some regulations. Yes, some of them are excessive, some of them go too far, but we do need some regulations. And I would disagree with you. And to illustrate that, we'll look at one regulatory agency. Look at the Food and Drug Administration, because of all the regulatory agencies, that's probably the one you might think has some legitimacy. Does anybody think we should have an FDA? Right. Okay. When it was first created, the stated purpose of the FDA was to ensure a safe food and drug supply. And that seems like a pretty legitimate purpose. And we don't want to eat tainted food. We don't want to be taking medications that we think are going to save our lives. And it turns out that that they're poisonous. So of all the regulatory agencies, perhaps the FDA is the one that seems the most legitimate. But there's more to the story than that. Consider the case of Abigail Burroughs. When Abigail was 18 years old, she contracted a rare form of cancer. And her doctor was aware of this drug that showed some potential for her particular type of cancer, so he recommended that she take it. But unfortunately, it hadn't been approved by the FDA for Abigail's particular form of cancer. So Abigail contacted the FDA and said, can I please take this drug on an experimental basis? And the FDA said no. So Abigail said, can I pretty please take this drug? And again, the FDA said no. And this went on for about 8 months until Abigail died. Sadly, 5 years later, the FDA got around to approving the drug for Abigail's particular form of cancer, but obviously it was too late for her. So I'd say there's more to the story. Besides this obviously tragic ending, what lesson can we draw from Abigail's story? Well, according to Thomas Jefferson and the Founding Fathers, Abigail had a moral right to take that drug. It was her life. She had a right to the liberty to choose her actions and act accordingly, so long as she respected the rights of others. In consultation with her doctor and her family, she thought this drug would help her life, maybe save her life. And she was willing to take whatever risks were associated with it since it was an experimental drug. According to Jefferson and the Founding Fathers, she had a right to take the actions that she thought appropriate for her life, free from interference from others. That's what the founders fought for the revolution. For Abigail's right to take that drug. Obviously, they didn't fight specifically for Abigail, but that was the principle they were fighting for. But according to the FDA, Abigail did not have that right. According to the FDA, Abigail did not have a right to act as she thought best in pursuit of her own life, the values that she wanted. According to the FDA, Abigail didn't have a right, shouldn't be allowed to act by right, but only by permission of government officials. And that's the principle that underlies every regulation. We don't have a right, or we don't have the freedom to act by right, but only by permission. We can't act as we choose, but only as government officials deem appropriate. We can only act with the permission of government officials. So that is why we should abolish all regulations, or repeal all regulations, because every regulation violates our rights. Every regulation violates our freedom to act as we choose, forces us to act as government officials. Now you might think that if we got rid of all the regulations, life would be chaos. We'd be at the mercy of the Bernie Madoffs and the Enrons of the world. And that's not true. Has anyone ever used the Better Business Bureau or Angie's List to find a service provider, or perhaps consulted Consumers Reports to investigate some product you're thinking of buying? Okay. Probably all of us have. So these are private businesses providing us with the information we need to make informed decisions. If we want the freedom to act on our own judgment in pursuit of our own values, then we have to take responsibility for our choices and actions. And a part of that responsibility is making informed decisions, getting the information we need. But we don't need government to do that. We don't need government stamp of approval on some business or some product saying it's okay to do business with this person or purchase the product. We need to take that responsibility ourselves. And these organizations and countless others like them provide us with that information. In fact, if you go on the web, just about any website that's selling some product offers information on this product. Amazon has book reviews. Home Depot and Lowe's offer product reviews. Travel sites do that. So it's very easy for us to get the information that we need to make informed decisions. These types of innovative solutions are common to a free market. They're common when individuals are free to act on their own judgment and to produce and trade without interference from government. In fact, that's what my book is about. It happens in every realm of life. Individuals are free to produce and trade without intervention. In my book, I examine how individuals provide a vast array of goods and services that we often think government must provide. For example, libraries, parks, mail delivery, education, roads, infrastructure. I have examples from throughout history of private individuals and private businesses providing these goods and services. And these examples are all over the globe. So the examples aren't limited to one time or place. It's not like it happened for 10 years in the United States or something. The principle of individual rights is universal. It applies to all individuals at all times and all countries. So if you're interested in learning more about the application of individual rights, I have copies of my book for sale. I encourage you to take a copy. But these are pretty gloomy times. You know, the government has extensive control over our lives. And with Obamacare about to kick in, it's going to have even more control over our lives. But I think it's important to remember that the Founding Fathers also lived in gloomy times. They took on the most powerful military force in the world at that time. And the Founding Fathers had a pretty ragtag army behind them. Things didn't look real rosy during the war. But the Founding Fathers were courageous men, and they were certain in the justice of their cause. They were fighting for the most noble principle in the history of humanity, the principle of individual rights. In the Declaration, they swore to one another their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. During the war, many of them lost their lives, many lost their fortunes, but none lost their sacred honor. Those of us who love America must also be courageous. Those of us who want to return this country to its greatness, those of us who want to return this country to its greatness must also be certain in the justice of our cause. Those of us who want to return America to its founding principles must also fight for that most noble of causes, individual rights. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Address professional licensure?
Yes, occupational licensing, yes, I addressed that. Which one again?
When you're talking about individual rights, how important do you think it is to emphasize exactly where those rights come from? For example, you quoted Thomas Jefferson. He said that we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. I think the Founding Fathers pretty much universally recognize that there's a higher law, that government is subject to a higher law. And how important is it to emphasize that these rights are not just arbitrary rights, that these rights are actually rooted and grounded in a higher law that's immutable?
I think we do need to emphasize the source of rights. And I think the rights are grounded in the humanity of rational being. We survive by the use of our mind, by transforming what nature has provided us. The values that we require to live our life are not just laying around. Cables, automobiles, iPads, flat-screen TVs, these have to be produced. We have to transform the materials of nature to produce these values. Even food, something as simple as food. We have to use our mind to identify what berries are edible and which are not. To sustain our life or to enhance our life requires to use our mind. And in order to use our mind, we have to be free. Free to act on our own judgment. So our rights are grounded in our nature as rational beings. Yes, I think we do emphasize that.
The first speaker mentioned that when they were using technology as far as the jury pools go, the jury pools were skewed because some people had access to it and some people don't. And you just gave an example as far as the regulatory agencies that there's, Angie's List and, Better Business. It seems to me that only a certain segment of the population have access to those things. So the lower socioeconomic people in that group may then fall prey to, unscrupulous businesses if they don't have the resources to check these things out for themselves. So if you're against all kinds of regulations, then how do we protect the part of our society that can't investigate these things for themselves?
Well, I wouldn't say they can. They may have to take other measures to accomplish that. But it's a fact that at any time in history, not everyone's going to have access to the same.
What are we doing here? Talking.
Yeah, and there are lots of ways to get the information. First of all, if they are at that socioeconomic level, the types of things that they're going to be purchasing are going to be different than maybe what you and I would be purchasing. So their needs are different. But the fact is, they're still responsible for their own decisions. And the fact that they don't have access to the same resources and information that we do is not justification for government to step in and tie the hands of everyone else. I don't know if that totally is.
When we allow that government agency to make decisions for everyone else, that means they're also going to make it for us. And I don't know if that's appropriate.
And if you personally are concerned about helping these people, there's nothing stopping you. There's nothing stopping you from setting up some kind of community library or computer access or something for them to go and have access to. And they're in a free society. No one would stop you from doing that. And as I point out in my book, in a free society is a benevolent society. Americans, I wouldn't say we're a free society anymore, we're semi-free, but Americans are far more benevolent than any other country. It's not even close.
So many people now, though, are so used to the namaste. I mean, the majority of people just rely on the government, and mobile call the government, the speed money, this time. How do you wean people off that government dependence and the propaganda about government? You've got to rely on the government. You do it all over the place.
Well, I think that's why we need to be principled defenders of individual rights. Nobody has a right to rob you. If your neighbor came to your house and stuck a gun in your face and said, my daughter is hungry or my daughter needs an operation, and he took your money to pay for that operation, we recognize that as theft.
But the federal government robs us every day.
Well, that principle doesn't change because the taxman's taking your money. And that's what we have to challenge. We have to challenge this whole idea that coercion is justified, or the initiation of force.
The people don't pay taxes, so they're living on my value. How do you change that?
By defending individual rights on a principled basis. There's no response to individual rights. How can somebody say, yes, I have a right to rob you? Nobody would accept that. No decent person, I'm sure some people would accept that because it's happening. But if we defend individual rights and say, look, you don't have a right to do this. That's what the founding fathers did. And look at what they accomplished. They said, these are our rights, and we're willing to put our lives, fortunes, and sacred honor on the line.
But
that's what we have to do.
This government is a bit more benevolent than
I don't dispute that, and I'm not saying this is going to change overnight, but we have to, if we do want to change it, we have to fight the battle the right way, and it's an intellectual, moral battle. And that's what we have to defend. We have to defend our right to our own lives, to live our lives as we choose. Founding fathers did, and I want to point out one thing. I'm sorry, I know you're present. But John Adams pointed out that the real American Revolution occurred in the 15 years before a shot was fired. Yes. The real revolution occurred, as he put it, in the hearts and minds of the American people. The way they thought about government and their relationship to government changed. And that's what we have to do, is change change that thinking about the individual's right to his own life, the individual's relationship with other individuals, the individual's relationships with the
So maybe this is our beginning of a revolution, and it's not a revolution.
I tend to
People are
think
getting
so.
together and
I think so.
deciding, I might have to fight for this.
Look at
Yeah.
what the Tea Party has accomplished in just a few years. It's pretty remarkable, and I'm excited about what the Tea Party is going to do. But we can't become like the Democrats and Republicans and just offer an alternative method of force. We have to reject that whole idea.
Maybe wrong part is the answer.
I'm sorry?
Maybe wrong part is
One
the
of the things
answer.
the lady over there said, how can we lead people off of that dependence? And I think the first thing is to stop saying that there are groups of people that can't do things.
Well, and I'd like to address that. I would say we don't wean. I say we cut them off.
That's right.
Well, now, when I say let me explain. I don't mean, if I became president tomorrow, I would not end all of these programs the next day. I mean, but I might say in 3 months they're going away. Or in 3 months we're cutting 50%, and in 6 months they're going away. So you've got 6 months to get your act together. You've got notice. Now, at the same time, if we remove the regulations, the economy would boom. So anybody who wants to work would not have a problem finding a job. You know, in the late 19th century, millions of immigrants came to this country, and they didn't have a problem finding jobs because the economy was free. So if we free up the economy, if we remove the regulations and let businessmen and entrepreneurs do their thing without government intervention, the economy would boom. There'd be plenty of jobs for those who want to work. And this might sound heartless, but those who don't want to work, tough. That's their choice. And for those who can't work, for whatever reason, there'll be an abundance of charity. And there are Americans, like I said, are the most benevolent in the world. There have always been people willing to help those who truly need help. But those who are just lazy and who don't want to work,
Like that 29-year-old beach bum in La Jolla, California, that was on the news, and he's on food stamps, and he's being supported other ways too. But this is his lifestyle. He smokes, he drinks, he parties, and that's all he does. He lives on the beach. But he did things.
He did say
He
that.
did say that, you know, but he is.
We could go on with this for a while, but we're out of time. I'm actually supposed to take 10 minutes or so to discuss it. I wanted to ask if people aren't prepared to buy today, is there a place that they can go?
yes, it's available on Amazon. And so the Kindle and a hard copy. But if you buy it today, I'll sign up for it.
Our next meeting is in 3 weeks, so that's 2 in the month of August, will be August 31st. We have State Representative Patricia Harless coming. She's Julia's representative.